Our topic for today is all about duty and agency. So before we start, when you hear a word duty, what comes to your mind? So of course, according to the Merriam-Webster, duty is a moral, legal obligation or your responsibility. An agency, according to Google, agency is a moral agent that is a being who is capable of acting with reference or a legal obligation or responsibility. So, duty and agency has a similarities. So, now let's start. Let's tackle about what is duty and agency. What is really the meaning of duty and agency? So it means that to ourselves, the moral theory that evaluates actions that are duty is called deontology. That comes from the Greek word deon, which means being necessary. Hence, deontology refers to the study of duty and obligation, and the main proponent of deontology is Immanuel Kant, 1724-18 to 1804. So, what is deontology? Refers to Mr. Immanuel Kant. So, deontology is an ethical theory that uses rules to distinguish right from wrong. So, Immanuel Kant, 1724 to 1804. He was a German Enlightenment philosopher who wrote one of the most. He is a German Enlightenment philosopher who wrote one of the most important works in moral philosophy. That book is the groundwork toward a metaphysics of moral in 1785. In his work, Kant brings our attention to the fact that we human beings have a faculty called the rational will, which means the capacity to act according to the principles that we determine ourselves. So, Kant believed that ethical actions follow universal rules such as don't lie, don't steal, and don't cheat. In the other word, as Kant would have us believe, telling the truth is always right. Yes, of course, telling the truth is always right. Even if, again, doing so right produces some favorable result. Hence, telling lie on the contrary is always wrong for deontological ethics. Example, a person who has killed somebody or cheated or lied or has stolen something, how would you judge him or her? And of course, as something very wrong. And how will you judge a person who is very kind, helpful, makes lots of donations? Obviously, something very moral or right. And now, how will you judge a person according to his or her actions, an event or a mistake, despite having no details of the event? Why do we feel that we know something is right or something is just plain wrong? Do what is right through the world. There is this phrase that people, a quote that is a famous quote that everyone believe that all over the world. The quote is, do what is right through the world may perish. So that is the quote that everyone believe. And let's understand the concept behind this deontology. So, now, as Immanuel Kant says that every human being have the faculty called rational will. So now, to consider the rational will is to print out the difference between animals and person. In one hand, animals are sentient organisms. Sentience meaning an organism has the ability to perceive and navigate its external environment. And so far as dogs and carabaos are sentient organisms, we do not see them bumping into trees and walls unless their senses are weak. So animals constantly interact with their surroundings. This is also true to us humans. We are also sentient, to thus both animals and persons interact in and with the world, reacting to external stimuli and external impulses to survive and thrive. On the other hand, people are also rational. Rationality consists of the two mental faculties, and we have to construct ideas and through that are beyond our immediate surroundings. As I said, Immanuel Kant is a German Enlightenment philosopher who thought to herald the Copernican revolution in philosophy. So what is meant by Copernican revolution? Nicolaus Copernicus was the 15th century astronomer who proposed the heliocentric model of the universe in his book. So the revolutionibus orbium coelestium. So, wait lang. It was universe in his book. The book of Nicolaus Copernicus is the Revolutionibus Orbium Coelestium. This was a major event in the history of ideas because it heralded a radical shift in the way humans considered their place in the universe. It is because Kant developed a revolutionary insights concerning the human's mind and the conditions for the possibility of knowledge. In this chapter, the primary text of Kant, the groundwork toward the metaphysics of moral, shows his contributions in moral philosophy. By itself, this text is also revolutionary insofar as Kant's ambition in the text is radical. He intends to develop what he calls to supreme the principles of morality. It is possibly basic because by basing it in the faculty of reasons, it becomes binding for all creatures that have that faculty. So, what do you mean by faculty? Faculty is inherent mental capacity. This is the way the bending force of all obligations. This is the way of bending force of obligation is no longer relative but universal. It is no longer depends on what a person's historical, cultural, or religious circumstances are. For as long as the person has the faculty of reason, the moral law is bending. Hence, Kant has become a quiet thinker in moral reflection. We just need to remember that according to Immanuel Kant, we as a human beings, we have a faculty called rational will. And we have the different abilities that we determine to ourselves.
According to these theories, the rightness or wrongness of action does not depend on their consequences, but on whatever they fulfill our duty. Kant believes that three was a supreme principle of morality, and he referred to as categorical imperative. In this work, Kant brings our attention to the fact that we human beings have faculty called rational, will, and of course, in some reason. In the same way, an architect first construction with her blueprint of a house in her mind. When the draft of that construction is drawn, she can give instruction to masons and carpenters on how to build the actual houses, which become the second construction. This happens often in our lives, such as when a young girl puts on their nice dress and makeup, when a student writes the outline for an English essay, or when a painter makes initial sketches on how a canvas. The first construction consists in how we imagine things can be. Then we implement that in the second construction through the capacity for imagination and reflection. We conceive or how we could affect, possibly even change the world we live in. Capacity for mental abstraction, which arises from the operation of the faculty of reason. Thus, we have the ability to stop and think about what we are doing. We can remove ourselves mentally from the immediacy of our surrounding and reflect on our action and how such action affect the world. We can imagine a different and better world and create mental images of how we interact with other people.
No intermediacy between impulse and action, and we as human as also have reaction that mediates between impulse and action. We have the ability that we have done and evaluate in our action in principle, but are also conceiving of the way to act according to certain rational principle. So the animals act with emergency, that Latin plus medium or without the middle. They do not and cannot deliberate on their action. In fact, we may say that animals do not act. They only react on their internal and internal impulse. Instruct, we Instruct, we human have the reason, which intervenes between impulse and act. We, we have the ability to stop and think about what we have during to the evaluate or the action according to principle. Simple state, we are not only reacting to our surrounding and internal impulse, but also the rational will refers to the faculty to intervene to the world, to act in a manner that is content with our reason. As far as I know, animals only the according to impulse based on their national instinct. Thus, animal act with emergency from Latin plus middle or no middle with nothing that intervene between the impulse and the action. They do not cannot develop. Thus, we do not have only the capacity to image and construct mental image, but also have the ability to act on to react, make real those mental image. This ability to enact throughout in basics for.
This is the continuation of the topic duty and agency. Right now, for example, you may feel lethargic, you may feel heavy, and your eyes are droppy. The corresponding impulse is to close your eyes and then fall asleep. However, your rationale will demand something else. Perhaps you have to finish reading this chapter for a quiz tomorrow. That is a part of a big picture. That is your permission as a student to earn a degree and do productive work. So, you struggle to stay awake. You stand up briefly to stretch your legs. You may have already taken some coffee right now. As you struggle to stay awake and understand the words of this speech, your rational will is victorious over your bodily impulse as long as you stay awake. This demonstrates an triumph of your rational will over your best impulse to just go to sleep. This triumph classifies the meaning of rational, well, the capacity of a person to be the cause of her actions based on reasons and not merely to mindlessly react to the environment and this impulse. And philosophical discussion about human freedom and capacity is called agency, which is the ability of a person to act based on her intention and mental states. Let's talk about lethargic. What does it mean when a person is lethargic? By laziness or lack of energy. Lethargic, the same as tired, who are experiencing fatigue or tiredness. As a student, we need to fight this struggle. I'm lack of energy, but I'm taking vitamins and herbal of being energetic. We need to be strong no matter what happens.
So, let us go back to Reggie the moment he discovered that Wen had left his sweet keys in the taxi cab. Reggie reacted according to his rational will to return the sweet keys. He determined that it was his duty to return it, inasmuch as his rational will had conceived such a duty. So, as Johannes says earlier, we judge a person by its action. Hence, to act according to a duty is a specifically human experience. Animals, if it is true that they do not consider closely the moment when Reggie found that Trent had left a suitcase and his taxi cab. If he were to return the suitcase, there was no promise of a reward from the city government of Baguio and no promise of a reward from the owner. What is he took the suitcase so its contents? That could surely help him supplement his daily wage. Life as a taxi driver in the Philippines is not easy. A little extra cash would go a long way to put food on the table and to pay tuition fees for his children. So, yet Reggie returned the suitcase without the promise of a reward. Why? Perhaps he had previously returned lost luggage to passenger. Maybe it was his first time to do so. Maybe he received an award before. Or maybe he knows some fellow taxi driver who did or did not receive rewards from passenger after they returned lost luggage. However, the point is that there was no promise of a reward. A reward in the first place is not an entitlement. It is freely given as an unrequired gift for one's service or effort. Otherwise, it will be a payment, not a reward if someone demanded it. I will ask some questions. Why do you think Reggie returned the suitcase? So yes, it's the right thing to do to return the suitcase to the owner. So, as my member said earlier, the deontology means requires human beings to act in accordance with and for the sake of moral law or duty. And that is the meaning of deontology. So, according to Kant, the moral duty is categorical or an absolute command. That is why he called his brand of morality categorical imperative. So, what do you mean of categorical imperative? Categorical imperative is an unconditional moral law applying to all rational being dependent of all personal desire and motives.